Main opposition parties, the SJB and the JVP in Sri Lanka, have rejected the president's request to form an all-party interim government. So what does that mean? There again, the situation remains fluid. The parties say that the president should resign. So that's the current situation in both India's immediate neighboring countries of Pakistan and Sri Lanka. We'll have a discussion around the important parts and how this is relevant for India. Let me welcome Mr. Shilkant Sharma, former diplomat, joining us here on the program. Mayed Ali, political analyst. Captain Alok Bansal, strategic affairs expert. Madhuri Rana Singh, freelance writer, also with us. But before I go across to the discussion, let me listen in, or let's in fact play out this ground report coming from Sri Lanka. Remember, my colleague Priyank is there in Colombo. He brings us the latest report.
We are at this Alexander Square and all these students have come out on the streets of Colombo protesting against the siblings of Rajapaksa, saying that go home Gotabaya. Gotabaya, who also had a dual citizenship, had come from the US and he was made the Prime Minister after he surrendered his citizenship, and that is a tagline which has been taken by all these students. The family governance, nepotism, hands off our future. You have ruined most of it already. He should resign. These are the placard which has been holded by all these students. Go home, Gotabaya. Gotabaya, go back. That is quite visibly seen, and all these lines which is being written on all these plates are Rajapaksa, enough is enough. What is the message to the Rajapaksa brothers, the sibling brothers, because they have not resigned, the cabinet has resigned?
Gota and Mahinda should resign. We don't want Mahinda or Gota. We want all Rajapaksa to go. We want our country back. We want the country for the children. We have children. We have no problem, but we have this Rajapaksa problem. So ask them to go. Go. We don't.
There were allegations that they took more money from China, which had led to this economy.
Yeah, exactly. They took money. They sold us. Even I don't know. I have been sold to China. So one day they will come to me and say that I was sold to China. They have sold all of us. So they should go home. They earn lots of all Rajapaksa earn lots from our money. I mean, this is our country. This is not Rajapaksa's country. Mahinda Rajapaksa came to the power with a loan. How can he have this much of money? This money belongs to the people in Sri Lanka.
Ma'am, very serious allegation which has been leveled against, very serious allegations have been leveled against your Prime Minister, your President, on the money which came from China. The country's economy has gone to toss. What do you have to say?
I think it's true. It's true. They have to return it to Sri Lanka.
Let's go. Ma'am, what is the message which you people are giving here?
The only message that we are giving here is Gota, go home. That's what we want. Gota, go home. Give our money and go home.
Madhuri Rana Singh, you're joining us from Sri Lanka. I appreciate your giving us your time today. I want to ask you, you heard those voices. Those are people in Colombo who are out there protesting, clearly demanding the immediate removal of President Rajapaksa. Why has the anger peaked to this level? What can you tell us about the current situation there, ma'am?
The situation in Sri Lanka is a bit tough, I believe, for everyone. I mean, all the Sri Lankans. We've been experiencing a lot of shortages in terms of electricity, gas, and we've been experiencing at least 10 plus hours of electricity downfalls lately. So these are the couple of things that made people angry over the government. We had this dollar crisis from the last year onwards, but whatever the poor decisions that this government made, make this get us through this stage right now. So if I recall, there were very bad decisions that they took in the last year, such as pegging the dollar against the rupee to 200 rupees. So very recently they removed it, and then the value of the rupee went skyrocketed. So with that, a lot of food items, utilities, the prices went up. Like if I'm not wrong, many people in Sri Lanka will agree with me this. I remember when I bought a carton of eggs for 350 rupees. The
Yes.
next day 450, which was 100 rupees up price. So this is the situation in Sri Lanka. The inflation is high and people can't tolerate it anymore. So that's why they are putting their anger towards the government.
People are talking about how the country has been sold out, and and China's name has featured from the voices that we just heard. In fact, let me bring in an expert here, Mr. Shilkant Sharma. If you can help us understand that where exactly did Mr. Rajapaksa go wrong here? The people seem to have formed this perception about how there's a complete collapse of governance because of the bad decisions taken by the president of Sri Lanka.
There is a lot of substance in what people are saying. The decisions were defective over the last 3 years. There was and the circumstances were also very, very severe, like the Easter attack in 2019. That distracted the tourists, and tourism is one of the mainstay of Sri Lankan economy. And then in 2020 onwards, the pandemic also disturbed the tourism. So tourism sector collapsed. Then there were remittances which used to come to Sri Lanka. Those remittances also dried up. And Sri Lanka's exports came down. So they had a serious balance of payment problem, which led to the currency crisis. And now the Sri Lankan rupees, more than 300 rupees to a dollar. And then the defective policies, like, they started organic farming and stopped chemical fertilizers import, which actually led to reduction in food grain output. And then imports were restricted, so food grains were not imported. Then diesel, the petrol prices and petrol prices came in because they didn't have the money. So as a result, all these things combined, and the essential goods like food and, domestics, gas and medicines, they were all in short supply. So there have been huge queues. So all this has, combined to give this very serious jolt to the president of Sri Lanka and his party.
Yes.
That you are responsible for this. And that's why now these protesters seem to be middle class, and they seem to be saying things which are, which appeals to middle class, which is, some kind of that China sold out and this and that. But actual conditions are such that it has been creeping, and they were unmindful of it. And they were expenditures.
That's the problem, isn't it? And therefore, there is a context for India that, there was something simmering out there. It's not without nothing that it has come to this kind of a situation. Captain Alok Bansal, would you like to weigh in on whether we have right in front of us now a glaring example of how the economy can literally go into a state of complete tatters, and then what happens to people? Those long lines outside gas stations, power cuts, food shortage, and you name it. And now the opposition has refused to even join hands for an interim government. That's the position of President Rajapaksa today.
See, I was in Colombo till Saturday. I've just come from Colombo on Saturday, and the situation is pretty bad. And the reasons for the chaos has already been listed by Ambassador Shilkant Sharma. There is no doubt for a country like Sri Lanka, which is dependent overwhelmingly on tourism. The tourism dried up after the Easter attack, followed by pandemics. In fact, most of the flights, the largest number of tourists that used to go to Sri Lanka were from India. And in fact, very few flights are going from India, and they're also going almost more than half empty, as was visited. But coupled with this, there were a few very, very bad decisions. Like President Gotabaya Rajapaksa decided to go for organic farming, make Sri Lanka an organic hub, which in principle looks very good, that you could produce products which would command high prices in the international market. But it did not happen because the transition to organic farming takes some time. The tea, which is one of the major products which Sri Lanka exports, actually the production dropped by almost 50%. It was one of their major trading commodity which they used to export.
Yes.
The second most important thing is apparels. Both Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have appeared as major apparel manufacturing countries. But when this exports of tea dried up, the president tried to curb the imports. So imports were cracked down on. But the fact is that apparels require certain ingredients like buttons, zippers, etc., which have to be imported. Now, since these products stopped coming into Sri Lanka, the apparel export also got affected. So consequently, our country has reached a stage where there is an absolute dried up. So initially China moved in, and then of course India has moved in. We have tried to support them in whatever way we could. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka is still not connected to Indian grid. It had been proposed many years back that we should have a land bridge which connects Sri Lankan power grid with Indian power grid. We have pipelines running from India to Sri Lanka. If that would have been the case, today India would have been in a position to supply fuel immediately to Sri Lanka. The power crisis could have been ameliorated to a very great extent. When I was in Colombo, there was a 13-hour power cut that was being imposed. And obviously, people who are used not to having power through the day, when they suffer this sort of a crisis, they obviously come out because they are not used to this sort of a life. And that's where you are seeing an instant, spontaneous protest all across cities.
Absolutely, and that is what happens when the common man is hit. You saw those placards which says, I want milk. There's a short supply of essential commodities, daily supplies, which is why there is so much anger now. A quick last word from Madhuri Ranasinghe before we move to the other country that we're discussing today, which is Pakistan. Madhuri Ranasinghe, how do you think the situation can be salvaged from here on? Do you envisage a change in leadership that can help, or is there any other way out?
Pardon me, I couldn't hear the question properly. Can you repeat it for me, please?
Just wanted to understand from you, how can Sri Lanka be salvaged from this situation, from the current crisis?
Okay. This is my personal opinion. So what right now happening is a people's movement. It's a civil movement without no political party affiliation. Even if you take it today, a lot of people are rejecting, a lot of politicians who are trying to.
Or input, thank you.
So, for this uprising, I mean, the people's movement, they are asking the government, like the Gotabaya, to step down, and the government to be going to a interim government or some with professionals or maybe who is competent in doing those work, not the political parties. If you see a lot of signs, people are asking all 225 people to go home. So this is the current scenario in Sri Lanka. So they are rejecting the whole parliament with the president itself. I know this is not going to be practical, but this is what people are demanding for. So right now, for me, it looks very uncertain, but as we can see, if a leader comes through from these, I don't know, from the whole political parties or maybe any professionals who are right now involved in these movements, there will be a better future for Sri Lanka. That's what I believe. So, because I'm also very frustrated with the government at the moment, with the Gotabaya and all the parliamentarians, all what are the decisions that they have taken, and what situation we are in right now. So,
yes. There is double trouble. Clearly, Sri Lanka is in the midst of a crisis, and let's hope in the days coming forward, we will see some change, some important decisions taken, which at least immediate concerns of the common man must be addressed. They should not be left to fend for themselves. Thank you so much for joining us, Madhuri ji. Thank you for giving us your time.